Hi guys, Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, coming to you live once again here on my EE Live Q&A, hosted right here in the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, which right now is almost 118,000. What do we got here? 500, I think we have. It has been growing just crazy. 118,280 members strong. And it's, when I first started this whole process, I never dreamed that this group would grow to this size. And it's just been quite phenomenal. So thank you to all of you members who have participated, who's contributed, who've been involved with this. And as we've seen, Express Entry is kind of like a Jekyll Hyde experience, really. You can think you've done everything right. You've followed the instructions that IRCC, or Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, have given you, and then you get your application returned because of something that you didn't even fully understand. And that happens all the time, guys, all the time. So I just love out there when people are posting, even within our group, oh, it's so easy. You don't need to hire anyone. Everything's on the website. That is garbage, guys. The reality is there are some instructions on the website, but there are a ton of things that are just downright confusing. And one of those is a topic that I am going to be covering right off the bat, a little 5 to 10 minute teaching moment on proof of funds. Now, I've done other episodes on this topic in the past, but I just want to highlight a few quick things. And then after the video, I'll post some other resources and materials for you within my YouTube channel, the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel. And I'll also post a few other things here within our group, just so that people can see where the truth lies with proof of funds, because there's a ton of confusion out there. And so I'm going to cover that. But in the interim, I want you guys to chime in and let me know where you're listening from. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole process, is seeing where people are tuning in from. And so I'm going to go to my site here, find our live the live broadcast, and try not to alter or mess up what I'm trying to do here at the same time. It's really hard to multitask here when you're trying to record and you're trying to test and determine if what you're saying is actually being heard. So Fazila, good to see you. Masad is already asking questions. That's great. We'll hold off on the specific questions, Masad. And then Muhammad is here from India. Great, Muhammad. And I know that it's probably just before, or maybe just right around midnight in India. So that's great. Oh, Candace, Trinidad. Candace, my son, any day now is going to be heading back. He could spend some time in Trinidad. More than likely, he's going to be going straight to Suriname, speaking Dutch. And but potentially he could be there. So every time I see you guys who come in and are watching from that region of the world, it makes me so excited. So any day now, we're going to get the word that Adam can return back to his mission. My oldest son, he tore his ACL and had to come home from the missionary training center in Provo. And so now he's been home it's been probably 4 months, really hard for him. But he has worked hard, rehabbed, and now he's ready to return. And we're just waiting for word from Salt Lake that he can go back and continue on with his mission. So he's really, really excited about that. So thanks for tuning in, Candace. All right, Diksha is from Delhi. Awesome. Rupal is also from India. Very cool. Taran is from the US. Awesome. And Taran, are you an H-1B visa holder? I'm going to do a special podcast on my Canadian Immigration podcast specifically for you guys. But let me know, Taran. I'm curious to hear if you are an H-1B visa holder in the US. Let's see, who else do we have here? Shanshal is from India. Very cool. And Mauricia, my favorite Mauricia right here. Very cool. The Caribbean nation. Absolutely. It's awesome to have you. Mauricia is one of my fine moderators, and just a wonderful, wonderful person who's very close to becoming a permanent resident of Canada. So Mauricia, you're going to have to come on when you ultimately get your confirmation of permanent residence and your visa instructions. All right. Vinay is from India. Zaman says hello, Baldev. So those who are tuning in recently or tuning in right now, I want you just to put in the comments where you're listening from. Like I said, I love to see where everybody is tuning in from. Oh, and Tran says, yes, I am an H-1B. Awesome. Well, stay tuned. And for those of you who are wondering, well, what is this Canadian Immigration Podcast? I'm going to pull this up here on my screen and then share it with you guys. I think those who have tuned in for quite a while are aware of it. But the reality is, with my Canadian Immigration Podcast right here, this is just one more thing that I've got going on. So I've got the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. I've got the Canadian Immigration Institute with the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself for Express Entry. And then this podcast is awesome because it's my opportunity to speak to the world. And it's on iTunes, and we cover a whole host of different topics on immigration. Now, it's been a little while since I did one. It's been a couple months. The last one that I did was on police certificates. Don't take them lightly, as you can see here. But I invite other guest lawyers to come on and share their thoughts, and it's just been just awesome. So I've been really happy with how this page has turned out. And if you guys could believe it, I get over 20,000 visitors to the Canadian Immigration Podcast every month. It's crazy. And so I really do need to give it a little bit more attention. So I'm going to be releasing a new podcast here shortly. Just thought I'd let you guys know about that. All right, let's jump back here. And then I'm also going to jump back and see what we've got going on here. Okay, excellent. We have Jeddah from Saudi Arabia. Very cool. We've got Stanley from India. And we've got Rajesh from Nepal, Baldev from India, Peter from Slovakia. Very cool. All right, guys, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for letting me know where you're listening from. Today is actually going to be a really cool episode. And like I said at the beginning, I wanted to share a few things with you. One of the things is proof of funds. We've talked repeatedly, and many times people talk about, okay, how much do I need? How do I prove it? But here's another thing that people are really confused about. What if I have a lot of liabilities? In other words, what if I have loans? How does that work when it comes to proof of funds? Do I have to subtract my liabilities or my loans from my assets? And I can tell you, if you go online, you will probably see 90% of the comments. You don't need to do that. You don't need to let them know about your loans. If you just have one account with enough proof of funds, that's all you need to worry about. Well, let's take a look and see what the instructions from the government really are, okay? And then we'll backtrack and we'll talk about what you should do and what you should not do with proof of funds. And I know I have a whole bunch of questions today, awesome questions from listeners, and we'll see how many we get through before I dive into the live questions for you awesome people who are watching live. But I want to show you something. Let's go right now to my favorite site, which is the completeness check site right here. It pops up quick on my site. And generally speaking, this is the guide that the officers use or the policy that they use when they are checking to determine if your documents are correct. And so I'm scrolling to the bottom because you can see here that it was last updated June 26th, 2018. So this is pretty current information. So I'm going to take that here. I know this is quite large, so I'm going to try and move this over here just so it's a little bit bigger, but you can still see my ugly mug over here on the left of your screen. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to proof of funds. Let's see if I can spell it right. There we go, of funds. There it is. Awesome, found it. Okay, so once we're here, now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the exact wording of what the officers look at when they are trying to determine if your proof of funds are good enough. So this obviously is to prove whether the applicant meets the low income cutoff assessed by the amount of money they hold compared to the number of people in their family. So right off the bat, it's obviously there's a table, and I won't pull up the table because you guys can all find it. But the reality is you have to be able to demonstrate that you have sufficient funds to support yourself if you are going to be immigrating to Canada. Because often when you get here, you won't have a job the very next day, and you'll need a reserve of money to get yourself on your feet, get an apartment rented, or to find a place to live, to get your family settled, to get your groceries and all those things to get yourself set up here in Canada. So they've determined how much that amount is. Now, if we go down here, I'm just going to show you this. Excuse me, a little sneeze. Here's what is required. These are the document requirements. And I know we've talked about this lots for those who have followed for a long time, but those that are new, this is what you're going to see in the little radio button when your own individual document checklist is created within the eAPR portion of your express entry. So once you get your ITA, you submit your application, your electronic application for permanent residence. Well, in the process of doing that, you're going to answer a lot of the same questions again, plus a few more about your personal history and your travel history and things like that. And you're also going to have a document list that has been generated specifically based on the answers that you've given. And if you are coming to Canada and you do not have a job offer, you don't have Canadian work experience, you're not currently working here, and you're qualified through the Federal Skilled Worker Program, well, you're going to have to provide this proof of funds. So let's read specifically what it says here. So the applicant should provide an official letter from one or more. You can see this, right? Let's read this again. From one or more financial institutions that lists all, and this isn't stuff I'm making up, guys, all current bank and investment accounts. So what does that mean? You pick and choose the one that you want? No, you actually are required to list all current bank and investment accounts. And I'm going to take one quick break here, and I need to blow my nose. So I wish I could give you some commercial to watch, but you're just going to have to hear me blowing my nose in the background. So 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Now I can breathe. I've been battling a little bit of congestion over the last little while. Now, if that isn't as unprofessional a video that you've ever saw, well, hey, like I said, this whole recording that I'm doing here is raw, it is unedited, it is real, and if I have to take a moment to blow my nose so that I can talk and function, I guess that's what I have to do. All right, so back to where we were at. So your letter right here, official letter from your financial institution, has to list all current bank and investment accounts, as well as outstanding debts such as credit card debts and loans. So I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy here, but based on that paragraph, it sure looks like you are supposed to disclose everything. Now, practically speaking, does everybody in the world disclose everything? No, they don't. In fact, the vast majority of consultants or agents over in India or Pakistan, wherever they are, tell people, no, you just need to provide your gift deed into your one newly opened savings account, and that's good enough. It shows the proof of funds. You don't need to worry about the other stuff. And why do they say that? Because they have no clue what the law is. They're saying it because they've submitted maybe 5 previous applications, and the individuals followed that same pattern of not disclosing everything, but only showing what they wanted the government to see. And guess what? Those applications probably got approved. The officer in those circumstances probably never had any need or felt any desire to question whether or not the person was actually misrepresenting by omission or failing to disclose something that they should have disclosed. Now, whether it actually amounts to misrep, that's to be debated because it's all based on the particular facts of that situation. But the reality is the policy requires us to disclose everything. So you decide. Now, the letter itself, this is something else we're going to focus on, must be printed on the letterhead of the financial institution. Great. It needs to or must include your name, obviously, your contact information, the contact information of the financial institution, And I guess because if they wanted to reach out and just confirm that your letter is actually real and not some forgery, and the account numbers, the date each account was opened, the current balance on each account, and finally, the average balance for the past 6 months. Why are they looking for the average balance for the past 6 months? Well, they want to see if it's actually your savings. Where did the money come from? Do you actually earn enough income to save your own money to be able to immigrate to Canada? If your average balance for the past 6 months shows that that's exactly what you've been doing, that you've maintained that level, then great. That is going to make the officer's job really easy. But if you have a gift deed, and guys, this is actually what's preempted this discussion is I just had a consult with one of our group members just today where she told me that most people she talks to say you don't have to disclose that. And all of the people, all of the Facebook groups, everything out there, the forums, they all say, no, you don't need to worry about it. It's not a big deal. Just show the funds that you've got in your account, provide your gift deed, and voila, it's done. Okay, so I disagree with that, and I choose to actually follow what the government asks. And let's see, how many express entry applications have I had rejected because my client didn't satisfy the proof of funds? Let me think. Zero, none. And the reason is because we follow these instructions. I follow everything that the government asks me to do. And then if they have an issue, then I challenge them on it. If I feel like we've done everything they've told us to, and they've then come back and said, oh, sorry, it's not good enough, that's when your immigration lawyer steps in and politely questions whether or not that officer's decision was reasonable. And there's a number of ways to do that, requesting reconsideration, or ultimately bringing a federal court application for leave to appeal and judicially review the decision of the officer, whether or not it was reasonable or not. But that's a whole different discussion. So you can see my advice, yes, you do include it. But the real question now, and I know you guys are like, come on, Mark, get with this, get going. The real question, and I'm going to jump back so you can see my ugly mug here a little bit bigger. What does that mean? So what if I have a loan that's say $30,000 Canadian, and I just finished getting a letter from my father giving me a gift deed and the equivalent of what I need as an individual to immigrate, let's say about 13,000 Canadian. It's a little less. But what if I've got a $30,000 loan that I'm paying on and I have proof of fund requirement of $12,000 or $13,000 Canadian? Does that mean that I have to somehow pay off that loan? Or does it mean I just hide it like most of those crappy, useless consultants out there tell you to do? Or do I follow what's the instructions and then provide an explanation? Well, without pulling all of the answers that I've gotten from the government as I've inquired into how they treat these, the reality is, folks, is that the officers look at things holistically. So they don't just say, okay, what is your assets? You've got $13,000 from your father, or for me, for example, I have $13,000 from my father, but I have this $30,000 loan over here. Okay, so Mark is actually short $17,000. So I'm going to reject his application because his assets are lower than his liabilities or his debts. Well, guys, that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. An officer looks at things holistically. A loan is meant to be paid off over time. So my questions whenever I have a client in this situation is, well, what are your monthly payments? What are your obligations over the course of the year? Do you have an asset that backs that loan? So for example, in the morning, my consultation this morning that I had right before this live Q&A, the client had used the money to actually acquire property. And so it was an asset-backed loan. Well, I can't think of an officer out there, and those of you immigration officers who have nothing better to do than watch these live Q&As, I can't think of an officer out there that would have an issue with that. when you've got proof of funds that have come from your father, they're real funds that are yours, not a loan. You don't have to pay them back. They're completely yours, unencumbered, irrevocable gift. All of those critical elements of a gift deed. That money is yours. It's in your account, in your name, and you can show it. With the loan, I fully disclose it. I will also include the property and the title to it, and showing that it was acquired by the funds from the loan. And really, for all intents and purposes, it's like a mortgage, right? And I would show there's the asset. I would even potentially put in a valuation, a property valuation, if if I really wanted to be crazy. It's and what value does a property valuation have in the purposes of establishing proof of funds? Virtually zero, because property valuations can be highly inflated. When it ultimately comes to selling a property, it's often worth quite a bit less than the property valuation. So in and of itself, that property valuation is just another indication to confirm with the officer that, yes, I do own this property. This is the money that I just used to buy it however many years ago. And, the property value may have gone up or down, but the loan that I have is backed by that property. And my intention is to sell that property. Now, if you wanted to be 100% careful and you're in that situation and you didn't want to have any chance whatsoever that an officer doesn't accept your proof of funds, and in return, your permanent resident application gets rejected. If you want to avoid it, then consider selling the property and liquidating and getting rid of the loan, paying it off, so it's no longer there. And I recommend that with all my clients. If you can liquidate your debts and liquidate your assets and cover your debts and get rid of them, then there's no issue at all. But if that's not feasible, or in the case of a property, well, you don't want to sell the property. That's why you bought it, for a long-term investment. Then in those circumstances, you explain. You give the officer all of the information they need to help them see that you've got a plan, that you have the funds that you need, that the funds your father gave you are actually for settling in Canada, not for paying down the loan that you have. And that as you have those funds to settle, both you and your spouse, or in my case, if I was single, that I've got a plan. I'm going to get a job, I'm working, and I'm going to be covering that loan going forward. But the funds are going to be designed there to support me until I get on my feet. So there you go, guys. You guys decide what you want to do. It's always me just giving information, my thoughts, my ideas. I practice at a very, very high ethical level. I would never, ever I would never advise a client to just only submit whatever bank account they wanted to. But ultimately, if you've got a visa and there's like no balance on it, then who cares? You don't need to worry about that. But just to show exactly as it says right here, I'm going to flip back here. The date each account was opened, current balance, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. And I want to make sure that it lists all current bank and investment accounts, as well as outstanding debts. And so I follow the instructions. So there you go, guys. You decide what you want to do, but there is always a pathway forward. And the only situation I can imagine where there would be an issue is if you had this huge, massive loan of $160,000 or something like that, and your monthly payments on that loan were crazy high interest rated. In other words, they were like $12,000 a month payments. And then you got a gift deed from your father, and that gift deed was for $13,000, and you had no other means of paying off that loan. Well, then as an officer, I would probably have a concern with that. But that's taking it to the furthest extreme, guys. Okay. All right. That was actually, there we go, the tip of the day. And it was a little bit longer, but the reality is I get so frustrated with people who offer all of this helpful advice based on their prior experience, i.e. you consultants out there and agents who basically don't even understand the law or the regulations. And the only way you even understand anything about express entry is because you've read the website, and then you've learned, as I described personally here, you learned off of the backs of your clients. In other words, all the previous clients that you've ruined their lives because you gave them crappy information, then you learn from them and then you adapt your reasoning. And that's why, to a large extent, they go overboard and they say, oh, if you've got any debt, that's going to count directly against your assets, and so you're not going to get it approved. When that is not true at all. But what they're doing is they're assuming, they're making an assumption that's just based on their own experience. And yes, if you take the position that you never want any debts and all you want to be able to show is your liabilities, well, that's fine. But the step that they take and the advice that's being given all over the internet right now is that if you do have debt that is substantial, yes, it's going to be a concern. And so you either find a way to liquidate it because you will not qualify, or you lie. You don't submit any information about that other account in the other country, and you only provide that one bank account where the funds have been deposited through a gift deed, and that's it. Okay, hope that was helpful. It took a little bit more time, but it's really important that you guys understand that what you hear on the internet and what people are saying in practice, it's not always something that you can rely on or trust in. And just because someone had an experience of doing exactly this, only providing one letter from one bank showing just their assets and ignoring everything else, just because they got their application approved because an officer didn't think to inquire further, or an officer actually trusted you to be honest, that doesn't mean it's going to be the experience for everyone. An officer at any time could inquire. They could say, hey, I noticed that you are in the UAE and you provided a bank account from India. And I know that the UAE tends to be more of a more electronic monetary country versus a cash-based country. So where's your bank account? They could ask that. Well, how are you living? Your employment income. Your employment letter says that you're making, 10,000 dirhams a month or whatever it is. And so where's it being deposited, right? And so that's me. This is Canadian immigration lawyer Mark Holthe giving you the law as it regards proof of funds. So hope that was helpful. I'm done my little teaching moment, which took a little bit longer, but guys, it was really important. Okay, now is the time to crack open these awesome letters. And I know I've got a bunch of people who are commenting that are from all over the place. Nepal and, we've got an Ola there, Baltico. Let's see, Bushra has given me an Ola. I wonder if other people are responding. New Delhi, cool. Dubai, awesome. You guys know what I'm talking about here. Wow, very cool. And there's Bella. Bella, she just joined. She always comes on. Bella, we're coming on Saturday, and I am so excited. The whole clan is coming. So Connor and Michaela and Adam and Deanna and myself. So we're really looking forward to it, my friend. It's going to be so awesome to see little Jaden. Okay, all right. I'm going to leave the questions. So don't post your questions yet because we have to get through these ones first. So the first question here, and I'm going to, once again, because we have a lot here, it's going to be really important for me to get the correct timestamps on here. So 2815. So this question here is from Cyril, I think. Cyril, yes. My husband has 10 years of work experience, some as an employee and some as self-employed. Okay, this question is about spousal work history and do I need to disclose it? Most of his self-employed years were in Spain, and we were wondering if he could just delete them all from the profile to avoid having to find all the documents and translate, and so only keep the jobs where he was an employee. Would it be a problem having gap years between the jobs? Thank you in advance. Okay. First question. I don't know, Cyril, if you are the principal applicant or your spouse is. If you are the principal applicant and your spouse is just an accompanying dependent, then do not waste any time including foreign work experience in that spouse's employment history section. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. There's no points for it. No CRS points are awarded. No, even the minimum entry criteria is not impacted by a spouse's work experience, foreign work experience. Canadian work experience, yes, you get points for that. But foreign, don't waste your time. So If he is if he's the accompanying spouse and you are the principal, then don't worry about it at all. If he is the principal applicant, then remember the first test is the Federal Skilled Worker Program's selection criteria, which is out of a point system, 67 out of 100. If you can pass with a 67, then you're fine. And how do you accumulate those points? I won't go into a big drawn out explanation of the Federal Skilled Worker eligibility process. If you guys want to Google it, you can. But the reality is he first has to meet that. If you're not in Canada, which I'm assuming is the case, then under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, you need to show that you qualify for it. Part of the eligibility is that you have at least 67 out of 100 points on the selection criteria. If you have that and you can get by with 3 years or less work experience, that's all the work history you need to list. You don't even need to list anything more in the previous 10 years than what constitutes 3 years of full-time work experience, skilled work experience. Because, and the reason is, you can get up to 6 years of work experience credit for the Federal Skilled Worker Program's assessment process to see if you're eligible. So they will give you points for up to 6 years of foreign work experience. After that, you don't get any. But the difference between 6 years of work experience and 3 years within the Federal Skilled Worker Program is quite small. Oh, you know what, guys? It's hard not to get into a lot more detail. You guys can sort this one out. I'm not going to go into detail. But the reality is, for most people, with 3 years alone, they have enough points to meet the Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility requirements. And under the comprehensive ranking system, 3 years, once you hit 3 years, you're not getting any more points. So having 4 years doesn't help you. All right. So as long as you have enough points under the Federal Skilled Worker Program to meet the 67-point threshold, then you only need to include 3 years to maximize your comprehensive ranking system score. Okay. Great, Cyril. Great question. And that was quite lengthy. Okay. Next question is from Shri. Let's see if we can get through this. And this one is a little bit longer. Okay, thanks for your guidance online. You're welcome. I want to submit I'm going to stop here for one quick second once again so I can just make sure that I'm on the right. So, okay. All right. So I want to submit my EE profile. I am in Toronto now. And then he gives a little bit of background, 4 years computer engineering, 1 year master's, and these are done in Canada. IELTS 8, outstanding Canadian experience. Okay, so he says, I want to show for 2.9 years, 2.3 years in an MNC Tata consultancy service. Okay. I'm just looking at this. And often, guys, these questions, I try not to discriminate. I just take them and I answer them. I don't like weed out ones that I don't think I can answer. I actually try to answer them all. But the reality is, for this one here, Shri, he's basically answering, is it okay to put my NOT code for 2.3 years of TCS software testers experience as 2173 or 2171? Okay, so this one, Shri, is actually not one that I can answer. This is an assessment for which NOT code works. The title doesn't mean anything, guys. It's all based on your job description. So if I jump back here and show my screen again, I just want to type in here, I'll show you, secret to finding your correct NOC right here. This is the link right back to my Canadian Immigration Podcast website. I updated it last year, but it's still 100% current. I'm just going to post this for Shri here and for the rest of you in the comment section. This is a great resource that you guys can use to determine what your NOC is. And so that's basically what Shri is asking me, but that's not something that I can do within this EE Live Q&A. So take a look at that, and that should help you to decipher what you do. But remember, the title isn't what's important. It's the job duties that you are actually working. Okay, Manish says, it will be extremely grateful to you if you can answer my query. Okay, I have 2 questions. I'll answer the first one. So I've a CRS of 435 now. Do you see any chance of CRS going down this year? If yes, which shall I get? Police clearance, experience letter, medical docs ready beforehand. Okay, so the first question, Manish, is I don't. I do not see it dropping below 440 this year. It hasn't the whole year, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. There's a ton of candidates sitting in the pool waiting to be drawn in that range, and there is a large amount with 440 and up, and so I really don't believe that it will drop. But hypothetically speaking, if you're sitting at 440 as opposed to 435, don't waste time getting a police clearance or any of those things beforehand, because you just don't have a good chance of getting qualified. But if you're at 440, absolutely. The moment you know where your score is and that you know you have 440 points, in other words, you've gotten your educational credential assessment, you've written your IELTS, you know what your score is going to be, and if it's at least 440 or higher, then get everything else, everything. And in fact, my client this morning submitted their profile on September the 5th, and it was drawn that same day. So understand that then you only have 60 days to collect all the other information. So if you know you're going to be drawn, then please go get all the documents ready so that you're not waiting on something, which then just further delays your application. But if you know you don't have a good chance of getting an ITA because your score is under 440, then hold off. Don't bother getting your police clearances or your medicals beforehand. With your experience letters, if it's a past employer, then yeah, go ahead and get it, because you're going to need that information regardless. And it's old. It's ancient. It's previous work experience. It's not current. So your employer, with your current employment, you might want to wait on that because you're probably going to be able to get it from them. But past ones, you can go ahead and it's not going to be expired. Okay. All right. So we'll leave that one, Manish. And once again, I forgot to write down when I started talking about this one, so I'll just guess. All right. Let's see here. Okay. The next question here is from, it's from Mandeep, and he says, "Dear Mark, I'm planning to immigrate under the Federal Skilled Worker Program in Express Entry. Please help me with this query." Okay, my legal name is Mandeep, Mandeep, in all documents like passport, marriage certificate, bank account. But I used my surname, Mandeep Sharma, in companies I worked because that was a requirement of the company. However, none of my employer reference letters mention my name, Mandeep Sharma. All employer letters have documented my legal name. Query, should I declare I've used any other name to IRCC? What document I need to provide in that case? So this is a great question, Mandeep. So obviously the question does come up, have you used any other names? And so I will often indicate, yes, I have used another name if it's Mandeep Sharma. Obviously, you're always going to use the name that's in your passport. And so that goes without saying. But in your case, Mandeep, if you also use Mandeep Sharma, there's no harm listing it as an alternative name that you've used. But if you do not have any other official documents where you've used that name, then if you're only referencing and it's only through your interactions with employers, then I would just provide a letter of explanation that says, Mandeep Sharma, I did use that name, but it's not on any official documents. It's just something that I went by, a name that I went by, but I did go by a different name with my employment situation or whatever it was. But I don't have any documents. And I would put that letter of explanation in the box for explaining the use of another name if it appears for you. Okay, so good question, Mandeep. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay, next question is Abhishek. And Abhishek says, okay, I'm planning to apply through Express Entry. I have CRS of 461. Awesome, that's fantastic. Okay, so Abhishek says, I'm working for a company which is based in Delhi, India. And during the initial tenure with my company, I went to Mumbai at the client location for my work and stayed at 2 different residential addresses. Is it compulsory to include the Mumbai address and address history in my post-ITA profile? In other words, when they're submitting their eAPR. If yes, then I will have to mention about my work in Mumbai and work history. Please note that I don't have any proof from the client that I worked in Mumbai. However, my job reference letter also does not include any information about client location. Can I skip this Mumbai part in my post-ITA profile? Would this be counted as any kind of misrepresentation? So Abhishek, this is another really good question. The reality is, you don't have to list anything in your work history that you do not want to claim comprehensive ranking system points for. So with that being said, there is no problem with you indicating in your personal history that you, during that time period that you were in Mumbai, that you lived there. Include it. And if there's any confusion with your reference letter, where basically your reference letter says, Abhishek worked from January to December, but during that time you were actually in Mumbai for a couple months. Well, one, go back to your employer and see if they can identify that in the letter, or adjust your reference letter just to indicate that you were on assignment in that other location. If that was the case, I don't know. But if not, then just provide a letter of explanation. Ultimately, honesty, forthright is 100% the best policy. And remember, you do not, just because you have work experience or you list something in your personal history, doesn't mean that you have to list it in your work history or even in your education history. Those sections are for calculating comprehensive ranking system points. You put in those sections what you want to claim points for. In your personal history, you disclose fully everything that you've done without leaving any gaps, where you've been living, and within your travel history, you're going to be indicating where you've been traveling. So, or whether you've been holidaying or whatever it is. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Abhishek. Great one. Okay. Next question is from Visha. Visha says, do you anticipate any major changes to express entry over the next 8 months to 1 year? Specifically, do you think they would require the job experience to be in the same field of study? In my country, we do not do gift deeds. Will a notarized affidavit or agreement alone suffice? Okay, so Visha, I don't see any big changes coming down the pipe. This year, I am serving as the secretary on our National Canadian Bar Association's immigration section, a wonderful organization. And how it works, when you're a table officer, you serve as the secretary, then you become the treasurer, then the vice chair, then the chair, then the past chair. So in 4 years or so, I'll become the national chair of our Canadian Bar Association's immigration section. But notwithstanding that, and the ability that I will have to meet with the government, and this year I will, I've got 2 meetings. I've got meetings scheduled in November with them that I will be attending with the other table officers and taking notes as a secretary and being involved. But I can tell you that the government does not disclose any changes. And they really are good about not leaking even changes before they're actually published in draft regulation form. So I do hear about them before they become law, generally speaking. But right now, when it comes to changes to express entry, they've almost always been going by ministerial instruction, which basically means Minister Hussein can announce at any time that he's making a change to express entry. So he's removing he's increasing, let's say, points for studying in Canada from 30 to 60. Now, I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that he could make those changes if he wants to. So I don't really know what's going to happen, but I can tell you guys, if I hear anything, I will share any information that I know. But as it stands right now, there's no changes. Now, with your question specifically, I want to reiterate to you that education does not need to match work experience. And this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to show you guys something, because I have created a ton of videos. I've created a ton of content to help you guys. So let's see if I can go to YouTube here. And the YouTube channel that you all need to go to is my Canadian Immigration Institute channel. Now, anytime I post anything, and this is actually quite cool, I'm just about up to 10,000 subscribers. And only a few months back, it was hovering around 2,500 or 3. So people are starting to clue in that this is a good place to look. Within my videos here, I have got everything that I've done here. You can see it all in one easy place to access. And within this, I have down here some tips of the day. And one of the tips of the day that I have right here, which I'll pause quickly, is, does my education need to match my work experience? So I would highly encourage you guys to take a look. So I'm going to copy this link. Actually, let's just see here if there's a better link. I think this is probably the link. This is my access to it. Yeah, this is the same one. I'll just copy this. And then for all of you fine folks, I'm going to go back into our Facebook group, and then I'm going to paste it for you guys. So there's the link. It's actually working not too bad now, being able to do this. So I just would encourage you, Avisha, to take a look at that, because education does not need to match the work experience that you're claiming. It doesn't. And that video will explain everything to you, and you guys can all see it as well. Those who are listening on YouTube, well, go search the one that I just showed you. All right. Okay, great question. Okay, the next one is, and these are awesome. I've got a ton of questions here. This one is from Surinder, and he says, I hope you're doing well. My name is Surinder. I'm from India, planning to apply for Canadian immigration through express entry, and here's his query. I worked full-time in an organization for 3 years, for which I'm claiming points, June 2015 to June 2018. Towards the end of employment, November 2017, I enrolled myself in a full-time postgraduate study program. However, I'm not claiming any points from education. Is it advisable to include my education and personal history, keeping in mind that there is an overlapping period of 8 months where I have a full-time job and I'm studying? Is it acceptable to pursue job and studies both full-time simultaneously? Absolutely, 100%. There's no problem at all, Surinder. And I'll also tell you that I would actually include that education in your personal history. You want to indicate what you're doing. And in fact, you will have 2 entries that overlap, and that's totally fine. Often master's programs and things like that, graduate programs, they're often virtual. There's so many that you can do while you're working full time. So it's not unusual at all. Guess what my advice is, guys? 100% honesty. Never do anything else. And if anyone tells you to hide or conceal or do different things, don't listen to them. And let me qualify. There's a big difference between listing in your work history and your study history, education and studies that you want to claim points for, and choosing not to list it because you don't want to claim points for it. You can do that. It's 100% okay because you're listing it all in your personal history. So never, ever omit anything in your personal history, even if it means you're going to multiply or duplicate entries over the same time period. But when it comes to work history and study history, you don't need to include things that you're not wanting to claim points for. Because what happens if you write it down? Then a box is going to open up, a section in your document checklist that says, please answer this A, B, C, D, provide evidence of it. And who wants to provide a reference letter for work that you did at McDonald's as a food counter attendant, which is a skill level C, which doesn't count for anything. But you will list that if it's within the last 10 years in your personal history. Okay? Great question. Love it, Surinder. Thank you, my friend. Okay, next question is from Faraz. And I'll put this down here. Faraz says, hope you're doing well. I had created and submitted my Express Entry profile a few weeks back. However, I've recently switched my job and therefore am a little confused regarding updating my work history section. I have continuous work experience for 4 years in a single knock from my last employment and will be getting my reference letter as per the CIC requirements from my past employer. Considering the fact I'll not be getting more points, awesome, Faraz, you understand this. He's got 4 years. He doesn't need 4 years. He doesn't need more than that. 3 probably maximizes everything for him. He says, considering I will not be getting more points for any other experience I mentioned in the work history section, as I've maxed out 3 years, should I update my work history section to mention my current job, or can I simply mention details of my current employment in personal history? I'm worrying that skipping my current employment from work history section might raise concerns at immigration officers and while reviewing my case. How should I proceed? Looking forward to your valuable feedback. Faraz, great question. And I love the fact that you're trying to be honest. I love my clients who believe in being honest. You know what? It's hard when you're in a country and you know that the only way you're going to be able to go to Canada is to lie or to misrepresent or to pay someone to fake something for you. I understand. If I was in your countries, it would be really hard for me if I was living in poverty to be honest and to have integrity. And I can't ever put myself in anyone's shoes. But I can tell you from my perspective, not only as a lawyer with a code of professional conduct, but just who I am, someone who believes in God, who believes in Jesus Christ, who believes that there are moral absolutes, who believes in the value of having integrity and in honesty. Even if it doesn't work out in my favor, then you know what? I would never advise a client not to disclose things properly as they should be. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Faraz. Great one. Okay, we're cruising through this. Okay, next one is Momin. And Momin says, warmest greetings, Mark. I would like to inquire two short things. Does a quick submission of documents after ITA mean saving time till PPR? Answer, yes. The sooner you get your eAPR completed and filed, the sooner your application will be processed, because the processing times that the government post, in other words, 80% of the applications will be processed in under 6 months. That clock starts to run when you file your eAPR. Question 2, do all documents need to be notarized before uploading? Degrees, work reference letters, bank statements? No, they do not. The government does not require a document to be notarized, just a straight English document. But if your document is written in another language other than English or French, then yes, you need to follow the requirements of getting that document notarized. And in all honesty, and I'm going to put here on here notarization, just for my reference when I'm linking this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to share my screen with you guys again. I'm going to go back to this section right here, and I'm going to type in translation. And right here, guys, you will see translation of documents. So if the document is in a language other than English or French, you must provide IRCC with a copy of the original document. Always, always remember to include a copy of the original document in your native language, as well as the translated version by a certified translator. So what you need to provide is the English or French translation, an affidavit from the person who completed the translation, and a certified photocopy of the original document. Okay, so I just wanted to share that because some people have gotten their applications refused because they didn't actually provide the original document in their native language. So don't make that mistake. All right, next one is Vinay, and Vinay says, I'll make a note here of the time again. First of all, thank you so much for holding live Q&As to help Canadian aspirants. I truly admire your work. Thank you, Vinay. My first question, I've been engaged for a year and got married before a week. Although we both decided to move to Canada through express entry 3 months back and gave IELTS and applied for ECA through WES, as we were not married, my wife's IELTS and passports have names and details before our marriage. Will it create any problem as we get IELTS and get ECA done before getting married? Also, as we got married just a month before ITA, do you advise to get spouse names added in our passports, or we can get new passports after getting ITA and AOR? Vinay, people recognize that circumstances change. People get married, names change. So follow whatever path is the most convenient for you. Ultimately, when you start the process, you'll need to provide an explanation. So if you entered your profile with one passport and one passport number, and then one of you changes their name and has a new passport with a different name, all you need to do is explain it. In the eAPR, have you used other names? Yes. And then you include and you submit it using your current passport and your current name, at least your eAPR. If for whatever reason your application itself is already submitted, your eAPR, you can still update the government and explain and provide a copy of the marriage certificate, which you already would have provided. But if you have a new passport, then just provide that, and that's the passport that the visa will be issued under. Just explain. That's all you have to do, and everything will work out. Okay, Vinay, great question. All right. This one is a little bit longer. I'm going to set that one down. Okay. Raj. This one is from Raj. And we're going to put down the date stamp here, the time stamp again. All right. My name is Raj from India. You have been doing an amazing work with all the videos and live Q&A. Thank you. I've been working hard on the Canada immigration opportunities. Okay. So we've got a couple of cases here. Case number 1, I've been self-employed from 2008 to 2018, have decent bank transactions, also can get some reference letters. Also, I've been a contractor for a Canadian company from 2012 to 2018 who's offering me a job now and loves to have me there. Case number 2, from 2000 to 2007, have worked for startups and big companies. For 4 years, I've got good records from the company. For 3 years, I'm finding it difficult to get the proof since most of them were startups. Okay, my question is, to prove my work experience and claim points, should I consider case 1 or case 2? Well, this is a great question, Raj. The answer, as anyone who is actually listening to this will know, that case one is the only option that you have. When it comes to work experience, you can only count the past 10 years. So anything beyond 2008, you can't even count. So that's based on what you've got here, that's your answer. It's case number one. Great question. Okay, this one here is from Joshua, and he says, hello, respected sir. Guys, I am just like you. I'm a little old farm boy who somehow managed to find his way into law school and now works as a lawyer. But I'm a farm kid, so I'm not a respected sir. I want you all to consider me a trusted friend. That is the way I would love to be addressed, as a trusted friend, not some high and mighty, important, respected professional sir who somehow feels like he's better than all of you. I am not. I'm a father of 4 wonderful children. I am a husband of my wonderful wife. I've got an awesome family, guys. And that is what I want to be known as, is a good father and a trusted friend. Okay. Wow. Who gets emotional when they're doing an EE Live Q&A? Oh boy. I guess it just lately I've been pondering on how lucky I am, and all the money in the world would not even compare to the joy I feel being a father and a husband and just loving God and knowing that he is there for me. So we'll leave it at that. So Joshua, respected sir, that's fine. I thank you for that kind introduction. I watched your videos on YouTube. Woo! You are super busy. And I'm so sorry to write you if I'm being a disturbance, but I want to ask is for a little help if you don't mind. I'm from Nepal. I've got a girlfriend in Canada, and we're struggling so bad because I tried for a visitor visa last time. Oh, this one is not an express entry question. Okay, well, whatever. We'll throw it in, I guess. But don't make a habit of it, guys. This one just slipped in because I just print these off and read on the spot. Okay, tried for a visitor visa last time and I couldn't get it. And this time I really want to get a visa because she is studying medical school and she's not able to focus. And I am as well. We're stressed out about everything. I thought you might be the right person to contact with us. Thank you for taking your time to read this and hope to hear from you soon. Ardumesh, this is obviously not a question about express entry, but the reality is, with respect to your question that you've asked here, it's highly unlikely you're going to get a visa if you've got a girlfriend or someone who's in Canada. In most cases, when you're separated like that, I advise clients, if marriage is the option, then you get married and you sponsor as a spouse. But I'm just trying to see here. I can't tell exactly. I think your girlfriend is probably Canadian or permanent resident, but you'd have to probably look at her sponsoring you. Now, with that being said, there's still options to take a look at the visa office notes through an access to information request to obtain the GCMS notes for that refusal. And I do that. And I'll show you guys one other thing here. I'll go to this, and this is one of my more common things. What to do if your visa application is rejected. And I just Google that, and that takes me to this link, which I drafted a while back. But there's some wonderful resources on here. So it also includes an explanation, as well as a link back to a special podcast episode that I did with Richard Kurland, who is a wonderful lawyer, someone that I respect more than you guys could know. He is awesome. So I put a link in the comment section here on how to find basically how to access this. And as you can see here, and if you click on this link, has your Canadian visa been refused? You click on this one and it will take you to this podcast episode with Richard Kurland, and it's awesome. So I'd highly encourage you guys to check that one out. I'll just put a link into our comment section as well. There. All right. Awesome. Great questions. Great questions. These are really good today. I'm feeling like I'm actually accomplishing something. Okay. Last one of the day. This one is from Jephthah, and he says, and actually I'll just make a note here of the time again. He says, I hold a bachelor's degree plus a professional certificate in project management from a project management institute of US. Is the PMP certificate equivalent to a master's degree? Or secondly, will it give me extra points if Wes assesses it? I just want to know if the professional certification will give me more points in addition to my bachelor's. So in every case, if you get, if you can claim at least one additional credential that's recognized in addition to your bachelor's, then you're going to get more points. You're going to be able to claim 2 or more degrees, one of which is 3 years. But whether or not it actually works, most professional things that are governed and run by the professional organization, most do not equate necessarily to a Canadian credential. But some professional level, like becoming a chartered accountant or something like that, then those professional designations themselves, some other ones like for accounting, etc., actually may. But at the end of the day, you have to go through and you have to get an educational credential assessment done. So I can't even guess or tell you. The only thing I can point you back to is to just go and reach out and make sure that you have that educational credential assessment. If they won't assess it, try a number of the different agencies. If West doesn't do it, then go to ICAS. If ICAS doesn't do it, then go to U of T, whatever it is. But ultimately, you need that ACA in order to claim any work history. Okay? You guys have been awesome. You've been so patient. I hit the 1 hour mark here answering all of these tons of questions, and you guys have been so patient. I have a lunch appointment at 1 o'clock in 10 minutes, just down the street that I can run to. So I will answer just a few quick questions right now. If you guys post them right now, whoever I've got time for a couple questions, but I'll make you a deal. Because you guys are so good, I'm going to do another EE Live Q&A this week that's just designed to answer all of your questions. And I will let you know in the comments for this video, because I know some of you have been so patiently waiting, hoping that I'll answer your questions. So I'll hit just a couple here, but then I have to run. Otherwise, I will miss my lunch appointment, and my colleagues will be quite disappointed in me. Okay. Manish says, hi, Mark. I have one quick question. Should I apply for PR through an agency or myself? Manish, you should apply for permanent residency through me. Seriously. I have got an awesome special offer, $2,500 Canadian for full representation, which is half off of what I usually charge, which is $5,000 for members of the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. So for those of you, I'm going to show you right here because I think people have forgotten about it. And like I said, Facebook is always challenging. So I'm going to actually, maybe it's easier. I'm going to keep this up here. I'm going to go back to the Facebook page. I'm going to show you where you can find the information on it. That's my good friend Irv. That's hilarious. In the announcement section here, you can see there are actually 5 different announcements. So when you click on it, you will see right here, this one right here, guys, 50% off the gold plan. So anyone who's at 430 or higher can benefit from this. So you know what? There's a time when I didn't really want to just push people to me. I wanted you to realize that, hey, I can answer all your questions. Well, some people don't even realize that I actually represent people, or they somehow miss it. So just send me an email. The email is here right on the page. And I'm more than happy to represent you. In fact, I'd be delighted to. It would mean a lot to me. Okay, so that's the question there. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Jagjot says, I have 2 different NOCs as work experience. 1 year software engineer, 2 years as a primary teacher. So this will count as 3. 465 score, but with 2 years of experience, I dropped to 439. So confused whether I should add 2 or 3 years of experience. Absolutely 3 years. Your primary teacher, Jag. will be your primary NOC. And then as long as you have at least 1+ year of software engineer and it's skilled, it's within the, my throat's getting dry now. As long as it's within the 10 years, then yeah, that's the direction you're going to go. So go for it. Okay. Terrence says, I'm currently working in the US and my firm does offer working remotely. If I take that offer and work from Canada, will that be Canada's job in Canada? No, it won't. It has to be in Canada. All right. And then proof of funds, 401k. Yes, you can use investment accounts. You just need to show. I get the letter, confirm the amount. That's entirely acceptable, especially 401ks that don't fluctuate up and down. Those are more secured investments. Okay, great. All right, guys, I'm going to have to end it right there. But like I said, I'm sorry that I have to do that, but I have to get to this other appointment. So if you have a question yourself, remember EE Live Q&A, put that in the subject line, send it to mholthy@stringham.ca. And if you have those two things in place, then you have a very, very good chance of getting your question answered. But otherwise, I will notify people today when I'm going to next do another EE Live Q&A that's devoted to just answering live listener questions. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. It has been another awesome episode of the EE Live Q&A. I thoroughly enjoy this, and you guys have richly blessed my life, and all I want to do is just give back. So Canadian immigration lawyer Mark Holthe here, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, signing off and wishing you all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call express entry. Take care, everyone.